Shalom and Boker Tov from the shores of the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, here in the north of the land of Israel. Yesterday we traveled from Jerusalem to the north, and midway we took a break and then took a turn towards the east as we headed towards the Kinneret. But before we got there, we were really privileged to visit the 2,000-year-old city of Tzipori. Tzipori is a really remarkable place because it is the birthplace of so many early Jewish texts. The synagogue itself there is one of the oldest and most beautiful synagogues in Israel, and really stands as a representation of where Judaism began to emerge in its different form after the destruction of the temple, as well as a place where Christianity was very much a part of the dialogue of everyday life, and was in many ways a thoroughfare for rabbinic ideas and early Christian ideas. Much of what we understand about Judaism today, our Siddur, the oral Torah, a lot of it came from this town. And that idea that one can grow after a certain destruction is kind of profound. We began to discuss that early in the morning when we studied at the Hartman Institute with a really remarkable person. His name is Dr.Tal Becker. And Dr. Becker is someone who's been deeply involved in negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians. And he said something really remarkable to us that changed all of us and kept us talking all day, all throughout the bus ride, while we were at Tzipori, and all the way until we got to the Sea of Galilee. We're still talking about it this morning. And that is specifically this. When we look at the peace process, we often wonder what happened, why did it stall, and what reasons can we begin to look at to understand the ways in which we can begin to move forward and reflect on what held us back. And what Dr. Becker was explaining about what often holds us back, both sides, both Palestinian and Israeli, is a victim-villain mentality. The idea that if you were to give up your victimhood, in some way you would lose a great part of your identity, and that the pursuit of peace is incredibly important, and oftentimes is more important than the pursuit of justice. Justice is quite final, and the pursuit of peace requires a different number of criteria. And when framing the peace process in a psychological way, explaining that we are often trapped in a victim-villain cycle of our own mental creation is something that was really striking. It was something that most of us discussed all throughout the day and up until the late in the evening. How is it that we can see ourselves neither as a victim or as a villain? How is it that we can grow emotionally, spiritually, intellectually in order to see beyond the narrative that we've created for so many years? This is a critical part of what we need to have happen, I think, in our country, and something that is also a great teaching for us as individuals in our own personal lives. Do you see yourself as a victim? And if so, how can you emerge from that mentality? How can you emerge from that state? If everyone else is a villain and you have to then give up your victimhood, where will you be? The idea of creating a new mythology, a new understanding of history, and in many ways creating new history was what was discussed. And one of the challenges that we face, I think, in our country, I think that we face sometimes personally and critically in Israel, is this constant loop of falling into the thought process that they are the villains and we are the victims. If we could emerge from that cycle in some way, in some healthy way, Dr. Becker explained, and I believe as well, that all of us could create a healthier new narrative to what it means to be Jewish, to what it means to be Palestinian, and in uh, in our own country, to what I think it means to be American. Could we step out of that cycle? I ask you and challenge you as Americans, as individuals, as Jews, and as people who care about the future. What do you believe is important? I think it's so critical that we stop seeing ourselves as victims. Grow, learn, listen, and create a new narrative for ourselves, for our children, for our many nations, and for the rest of the world. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and the sun has risen, is getting higher now, and we're about to get going. So I wish you well. I'll be reporting back to you again later on, and it gives me great pleasure to say shalom. I look forward to our next discussion from Israel.